The following days were anything but quiet. Even though Sophie was now behind bars, her betrayal left deep wounds that were still fresh. Daniel couldn't sleep properly. He spent his nights staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. How could he not see the lies? How could he fall for someone who had been playing him like a game? Ethan noticed his father's silence but didn't pressure him. He knew some pain needed time before it could speak. Meanwhile, Officer Patel continued his investigation. The mysterious name Angela that Ethan had discovered in the email became a lead. Patel called Daniel and Ethan back to the station to give them an update. He sat them down in a small room and placed 2 photos on the table. One was of Sophie. The other was a woman with short black hair and cold, sharp eyes. "This is Angela Mason," he said. "She's been connected to several scam cases across different states. We believe she trained women like Sophie taught them how to manipulate, how to disappear, how to move money quietly. She's the one behind the curtain." Daniel leaned forward. "So Sophie wasn't acting alone?" "No," the officer replied. "She was part of a larger operation. We've been tracking Angela for years, but she's always one step ahead. Now that we've caught Sophie, we might have our chance." Ethan asked, "Do you think she knows we found the email?" Patel nodded. "If Angela's smart, and she is, she probably knows already. That means you both need to be extra careful. Don't speak to strangers, keep your phones with you. And if anything feels wrong even a little, call us." The warning added a new layer of fear. Just when they thought it was over, another shadow appeared. That night, Daniel was in the kitchen making tea when the doorbell rang. It was nearly midnight. He froze. Ethan looked up from the couch, alert. "Don't open it," he whispered. Daniel checked the security camera through his phone. A woman stood at the door, wearing a hoodie, her head down. He picked up the phone and called the police immediately. "There's a woman at my door. I think it might be her." Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the street. But when officers arrived, the woman was gone. Only a note was found stuck to the door. It read, "You should have stayed quiet." Ethan's stomach turned. Daniel clenched the paper tightly. Officer Patel arrived shortly after. He looked at the note and sighed. "It's her, she's watching. But now she's made a mistake. She's left a trace." The police installed motion sensors and hidden cameras around the house. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window with a flashlight and a baseball bat, his phone clutched in his hand. Fear had returned, and this time, it wasn't a con artist in a dress. It was someone dangerous, someone who didn't care about love or rings, only silence and power. The next day, Ethan tried to go back to school, but he couldn't focus. His mind was stuck on the note, on the woman at the door. He walked the halls looking at faces, wondering who might be watching him. At lunch, his friend Leo asked, "You okay, man? You've been weird lately." Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. Who would believe that a criminal gang was now watching him and his dad? That evening, back at home, Daniel had a serious talk with Ethan. "Maybe we should stay somewhere else for a few days. A hotel, or your grandma's." But Ethan shook his head. "No. This is our home. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not running." Daniel admired his son's courage, even if it came from fear. They both agreed to stay, but carefully. Every window was locked, every door double-checked, every light left on. Meanwhile, Sophie's trial date was approaching. She had refused to speak to the police again, but Officer Patel said she had received something while in jail, a letter. It had no name, but the handwriting matched the note from the door. It only said, "You know the rules. Keep quiet." That confirmed that Angela was still controlling her people, even from outside. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He turned to something that had always helped him before, his camera. He sat down, hit record, and looked directly into the lens. "I didn't plan to become part of any story," he began. "I just wanted my dad to be happy. But I saw something that didn't feel right, and I spoke up. And now, someone is trying to scare us into silence. But I'm not afraid." He uploaded the video to his channel. Within hours, thousands of people watched it. Comments poured in. "You're brave. You saved your father. We believe you." The support gave Ethan a strange kind of strength. Maybe Angela wanted silence, but the world wanted truth. The next day, a woman named Julia contacted them. She had seen the video and said she had also been tricked by someone connected to Angela. "She used a different name with me," Julia wrote, "but the voice in your video, it's the same." Officer Patel followed up with Julia. Her story confirmed Angela's methods. Slowly, the case was building, one truth at a time. But Angela wasn't done. That weekend, Ethan's laptop was hacked. Files disappeared. His school project was erased, and a message appeared on the screen. "Last warning." Daniel called Officer Patel again. "She's inside our lives now," he said. "Not just outside our house," Patel replied. "That's good. It means she's getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes." So they didn't stop. Ethan posted another video. "They deleted my files. They threatened us again, but we're still here, and we're not backing down." The video went viral. News channels picked it up. Suddenly, their small family story became a national topic. The police offered full-time protection. Angela had gone too far, and now the world was watching. Ethan looked at his dad. "You think we'll be okay?" Daniel nodded slowly. "We already are. Because we told the truth. And the truth always finds a way. As night fell, their house glowed softly in the darkness. Outside, the shadows waited, but inside, there was light stronger than fear, louder than silence, and braver than lies. The media attention changed everything. Reporters waited outside their house, hoping for interviews. News vans parked across the street. People from around the country messaged Ethan and Daniel with support, offering to help or share their own stories. But for every kind message, there were also threats. Anonymous accounts flooded Ethan's videos with warnings. Stop talking. You're making a mistake. You won't be safe for long. Though the police had increased security around their home, fear still crept into every corner. Daniel tried to stay calm for Ethan's sake, but he was beginning to feel the weight of it all. The betrayal, the attention, the pressure it was becoming too much. At night, he sat alone in the living room, thinking about everything they had lost and the danger they now faced. Meanwhile, Ethan stayed strong on the outside but was slowly breaking inside. The pressure of being the one who exposed everything was now turning into the burden of keeping everyone safe. One evening, while Daniel was in the backyard checking the lights, Ethan received a strange message on his phone. It came from an unknown number. I see you've made some powerful enemies. Want to know the full truth? Meet me tonight, alone. Below it was an address, an abandoned parking lot not far from their home. Ethan's heart raced. Was this a trap? Or could this person actually have more information about Angela and the network behind her? He didn't tell his dad. He knew Daniel would never let him go, but Ethan couldn't ignore the message either. If there was even a small chance of learning more, he had to try. He waited until Daniel was in the shower, then slipped out of the house, phone in hand, heart pounding in his chest. The streets were quiet as he rode his bike toward the parking lot. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound made him jump. When he arrived, the lot was empty except for one old car parked near the edge. A woman stepped out. She wore a scarf and sunglasses, and her body language showed she was nervous. You came? She said softly. Who are you? Ethan asked, his voice low and cautious. My name's Lena, she replied. I used to work for Angela. I helped her build false identities. I didn't know what she was doing at first. By the time I figured it out, it was too late. Ethan didn't fully trust her, but he listened. She doesn't just scam rich men. She manipulates vulnerable people who've lost someone, like your dad. She targets pain. That's her power. Sophie was one of many women Angela trained, and there are more. Even now, Ethan asked. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw your videos? You have guts, and you've made her angry. She wants you silenced. I figured you should at least know how deep this goes. Ethan looked round, nervous. Is she watching me now? Lena nodded. Probably. She has people. Cameras, hacks. That's why you need to be careful. But if you really want to stop her, you need proof. Real proof. Where can I get it? Ethan asked quickly. She keeps records, videos, contracts, even photos. She stores them in a safe house outside the city. I don't know the exact address, but I can point you in the right direction. Before Ethan could ask more, Lena froze. A black car had just turned into the lot. Her eyes widened with fear. I have to go. Don't follow me. She jumped into her car and sped away, tires screeching. Ethan didn't wait to see who was in the other car. He grabbed his bike and rode home as fast as he could, his legs burning, his lungs gasping. He reached the house, ran inside, and locked the door. Daniel rushed out of the bathroom, towel still around his shoulders. Where were you? I was about to call the police. Ethan collapsed on the couch. I think I just met someone who used to work for Angela. She told me everything. She said Angela has a safe house with evidence. Real evidence. The tension in the house had shifted. It was no longer just fear that filled the air, it was determination. After the USB arrived, the police began moving fast. Officer Patel promised Ethan and Daniel that a full task force had been assigned to find Angela's safe house. But with no address and no way to reach Lena again, progress was slow. Still, every day brought them closer. And every night, Ethan replayed the video clips on his laptop. Not out of fear but to remember exactly what they were fighting. Daniel stopped sleeping in his room. He now slept on the couch with the hallway light on, just in case. He had learned to live in this new version of reality where safety couldn't be taken for granted, but even in the heaviness, there were moments of connection. Father and son talked more than they ever had before. They cooked dinner together, checked the locks together, sat on the porch every evening in silence, side by side. It wasn't the life they wanted, but it was a bond neither of them had felt in years. One afternoon, as Ethan walked home from school, he noticed a black van slowly driving behind him. His stomach tightened. He crossed the street. The van kept moving. He turned into a convenience store and stayed inside until it drove off. When he got home, he told Daniel everything. That's it, Daniel said. I'm not letting you walk anywhere alone again. They called Officer Patel, who sent someone to review nearby security camera footage. That night, Ethan's phone buzzed again. A private message. It simply read, "You're making too much noise. Be careful who you trust." He stared at it, thinking about Lena. Had she sent the USB out of guilt? Was she still alive? Or was someone trying to trick them? Again. But the very next morning, There was a breakthrough. Officer Patel called. "We found it," he said. "The safe house. It's real." The news hit like a jolt. Daniel and Ethan rushed to the station. Patel explained everything. "We tracked a delivery from Angela's past business account. It led us to a cabin 2 hours outside the city. We raided it this morning. No one was there, but we found her files names, photos, fake marriage licenses, and a ledger of money transfers. She was running everything from there." "Do you think she knows you found it?" Ethan asked. Patel nodded. "She will soon, if she hasn't already." They were allowed to look at some of the evidence. Daniel's hands shook as he flipped through pages. His name, photo, and personal notes were all there. Under his picture, it read, "Lonely, recently widowed, weak spot, his son." Daniel looked at Ethan, his throat tight. "They used you to get to me." Ethan stared at the page. "But in the end, I'm the one who stopped them." After the raid, the story exploded online. News stations reported on the criminal ring. Ethan's videos were played on national television. People began calling them heroes, but the danger hadn't passed. Angela was still missing. 2 nights later, Ethan woke to a loud noise. He sat up in bed, heart pounding. Daniel was already up, baseball bat in hand. "Stay here," he whispered, but Ethan followed anyway. They moved slowly down the stairs. The sound came against something scraping against the back door. Daniel turned on the outside light and looked through the small window. No one. Then they saw car lights speeding away down the alley. Officer Patel arrived minutes later. "They're trying to scare you or warn you. Either way, don't be alone. I'll place a patrol car out front every night." Ethan's hands trembled as he picked up what had been slid under the back door. A torn photo of him and Daniel, with the words "Time's running out" written in red ink. Daniel had had enough. "We need to end this, not just survive it." The next morning, they went on live stream. Ethan spoke clearly, looking straight into the camera. "Angela, I know you're watching. You tried to break my family. You used love like a weapon, but now the world knows what you've done. We're not afraid of you anymore." The stream went viral. Thousands watched live. People around the world messaged, offering support and sharing their own experiences with scams and lies. Something powerful was happening. Angela was losing control. But just when it seemed like the tide was turning, Ethan received a voice message. It was short. awomansvoice.com. "Cold. You want to play hero? Let's see how brave you really are." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses and the air grew quiet, Officer Patel returned with new information. Angela had been spotted 2 states away. She had changed her appearance and was using a stolen ID. But now, with national attention on her, she couldn't hide for long. "I think she's slipping," Patel said. "You pushed her into the light. People like her don't survive long in daylight." Daniel asked, "How close are we to catching her?" Patel replied, "Closer than ever, but I need your help. One last time." They agreed to help with one final press event and official police conference where Daniel and Ethan would speak to encourage other victims to come forward. It would be risky. Angela might strike back, but it was their chance to end it for good. The next day they stood at the podium, surrounded by news, crews, cameras flashing. Daniel took a deep breath and spoke first. "I almost married a woman who never loved me, a woman who studied me, lied to me, and nearly ruined my life, but my son saved me." Because he didn't stay silent, Ethan stepped forward. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who saw the truth and refused to close my eyes. And I want every kid, every parent, every person who's ever felt something was wrong to speak up. Because the truth is louder than fear." After the conference, more tips came in, more victims were identified, and the pressure around Angela began to close in. That night, Ethan sat in his room, staring at the ceiling. "Do you think this will ever really be over?" he asked. Daniel walked in, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said, "Maybe not completely, but every day, we take back a little more of our peace, and that's a victory." Outside, the moon hung silently in the sky, and somewhere far away, Angela was running out of places to hide. The days that followed were filled with waiting. Every morning, Daniel and Ethan checked the news, hoping to hear the words they'd been longing for: Angela Mason arrested. But each time, the reports only said she was still on the run. Though her face was now everywhere, TV, newspapers, online, she remained a shadow, one that wouldn't disappear. Ethan found himself unable to sleep again. He'd turn from one side to the other, wondering where she might be, what her next move would be, and whether she'd ever try to come back. Each time the doorbell rang, his heart jumped. Each time a car slowed down near their house, he tensed up. The fear had changed. It wasn't loud anymore. It was quiet, like a cold breath on his neck. One evening, Daniel returned from work with a strange look on his face. "Someone left this at my office." He held up a brown envelope with no name. Inside was a photo of Ethan walking to school, clearly taken from a distance. There was a sticky note on it, 3 words: "Stay in line." Daniel's hands were shaking as he handed the photo to Officer Patel. The officer examined it with a hardened expression. "She's getting desperate," he said. "These are intimidation tactics. But she's not invisible anymore. Every move she makes gives us one more piece." Ethan looked down at the photo. "She's close again, isn't she?" Patel nodded. "Possibly. But now we know how she works." and more people are helping than ever before. Later that night, Ethan sat at his desk, going through old emails. Something told him to revisit every message, every lead, every small detail they might have missed. That's when he noticed a pattern. The emails Sophie had sent when she was pretending to be someone else had a common signature, random numbers at the end of her sentences. At first glance, they looked like TYPOS. But Ethan checked the numbers again. 5,127, 8,471, 1,063. He opened a map app and typed the numbers in as coordinates. His breath caught. It pointed to a remote warehouse, just outside the city, near the old industrial zone, an area filled with abandoned buildings, where people rarely visited. He showed the location to Officer Patel the next morning. Could be something. We've checked that zone before, but we didn't have exact coordinates. I'll send a team there. If Angela's hiding, it could be in a place like this. Hours passed. The wait was unbearable. Then at sunset, Patel called back. We found her car, parked behind the warehouse. Engine still warm. Daniel and Ethan stared at each other, hearts pounding. And her? Daniel asked. Not yet, said Patel, but we're going in now. The next hour felt like a lifetime. Then another call came. She's in custody. Daniel sat down slowly on the couch, not speaking for a moment. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them away. They both felt the same strange mix of relief and disbelief. It was over, or at least, the chase was. Angela Mason was arrested without resistance. She had dyed her hair, changed her look, and was living under a new identity. But inside the warehouse, police found evidence that tied her to everything: documents, burner phones, lists of victims, and audio recordings. She had kept it all, never expecting her past to catch up with her. That evening, news broke across the country. Angela Mason, mastermind of multi-state marriage scams, arrested. Her photo was everywhere, now not one from her glamorous life, but a mugshot. Cold, tired, defeated. Daniel and Ethan watched the coverage in silence. They didn't cheer, they didn't celebrate, they just let it sink in. The woman who had haunted their lives was now behind bars. The next day, Patel visited them in person. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the benches, cameras clicked outside the building, and people whispered as the trial of Angela Mason began. The woman who had once lived in shadows, destroying lives behind fake smiles and stolen names, now sat in front of a judge in handcuffs, her eyes cold and unreadable. Beside her sat her legal team, but the air around her was heavy with guilt. She no longer wore fancy clothes or walked with charm, just a plain jumpsuit and silence. Daniel and Ethan were called to testify. It had been weeks since Angela's arrest, but the weight of it still sat on their shoulders. Daniel wore a dark suit and clutched a photo of his late wife in his pocket. He wasn't just here to speak as a victim, he was here to honor the memory of what love really meant. Ethan sat beside him, more nervous than he had ever been in his life, but determined. When the judge called his name, Ethan stood slowly and walked toward the witness stand. His legs felt weak, but his voice remained steady as he was sworn in. He looked around the room, then locked eyes with Angela. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch, just stared. Ethan began. I was suspicious of her weeks before the wedding, not because she did something obvious, but because she was too perfect, too careful. She said all the right things, but none of them felt real. I knew something was wrong. He explained everything: how he found the torn letter, how he followed her, how he gathered evidence, and how he shouted in the middle of the wedding to stop it all. The court was silent, hanging on his every word. She didn't just trick my dad, Ethan said. She used our pain. She studied us. She turned our house into a trap. And she would have disappeared the next day with everything: money, memories, trust. Angela smirked slightly, but said nothing. Her lawyers whispered to each other, but didn't object. Ethan continued. I didn't speak up because I was brave. I spoke up because I love my dad, and I couldn't let her destroy him. When Daniel took the stand next, his voice broke several times. I believed in love again after losing my wife. I wanted to feel something warm again, something safe. But I learned the hard way that not everyone who offers comfort is sincere. He paused and took a deep breath. She almost stole everything, but my son gave me back my life. After both of them testified, Sophie was called in. Her face looked different now, older, tired, worn down by guilt. She looked directly at Daniel when she spoke. I lied. I did everything you said. But I didn't know how deep Angela's world was when I joined it. She promised freedom, money, escape, and I followed her. But I regret it. The prosecutor showed evidence from the warehouse documents, photos, and the USB Lena had mailed. Every piece of it connected Angela to the crimes. Victims from other cities also sent in their stories. The judge had heard enough. After days of testimonies, the final verdict was read. Angela Mason, you are found guilty of fraud, identity theft, criminal conspiracy, and emotional abuse across multiple counts. She showed no emotion as the sentence was handed down. 25 years in prison, without parole. Gasps spread through the courtroom. Ethan felt his knees weaken slightly, but he didn't fall. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. It's over, he whispered. She's gone. Angela was escorted out in silence. still wearing that blank expression. But this time, she was walking away for good. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as Ethan and Daniel stood together. Reporters asked questions, but they didn't speak. They just looked at each other, then quietly walked away, leaving the noise behind. Back home, the world felt lighter. No more patrol cars, no more dark figures at the door, no more sleepless nights filled with fear. But there was still something left, rebuilding. Daniel returned to his job slowly, reconnecting with friends and family he had pushed away during his time with Sophie. Some were understanding, others less so. But the most important thing was clear: he wasn't alone anymore. Not the way he once was. Ethan began focusing on school again. His videos were still being watched, but now, he shifted his content from storytelling to helping others. He made videos about emotional manipulation, how to detect scams, and how to speak up when something doesn't feel right. Messages from strangers poured in daily, people thanking him for being brave, for being honest. One day, he received a message from Lena. "She's gone. I saw the verdict. I'm safe now. Thank you for believing me." Ethan smiled at the screen. It reminded him that even people who were lost could come back if given a chance. He showed the message to his dad, who nodded slowly. "We all made it out," Daniel said. Weeks passed, and one sunny morning, Daniel took Ethan to visit his mother's grave. It had been a while, but this time they didn't go in silence. They brought flowers, and Daniel spoke to the stone as if she could hear every word. "I almost forgot what real love looked like," he whispered. "But he reminded me." Ethan placed a hand on the stone and quietly said, "I wish you were here, but I think I did okay." As they walked away from the graveyard, there was no more weight on their backs, no more secrets following them. Just two people, stronger than ever, walking side by side into a life they almost lost. And somewhere in a prison cell, Angela Mason stared at the cold wall, alone, without a voice to manipulate or a lie to tell. The world outside had moved on. She was just a memory now, a warning, a lesson, and nothing more. The story that started with a wedding nearly destroyed by lies had ended with truth louder than anything else. And the boy who had once yelled, "Stop the wedding," had become the voice that saved not just his father, but so many others who needed the courage to speak. Months passed, and the chaos slowly faded into memory. The house that once felt like a cage of fear now felt like a place of healing. The curtains were always open, letting in the sunlight. The front door no longer needed a police car parked outside. Daniel and Ethan no longer jumped at every knock or unknown number. Life, finally, was returning to normal, but not the same normal. It was a better one built on truth, trust, and the kind of bond that only survives the hardest storms. Daniel had started attending therapy. It wasn't easy for him at first to speak about feelings, pain, and vulnerability. But with time, he understood that strength wasn't in silence, it was in facing what broke him. He spoke often about his wife, and also about Sophie, how she deceived him, but also how he allowed himself to fall so quickly. "I didn't just want love," he once told his therapist. "I wanted to believe I was still lovable." Slowly, piece by piece, he started forgiving himself. Ethan had changed too. He was no longer just a quiet, observant boy. He had grown into someone others looked up to. His YouTube channel had become a place of awareness and support. Survivors from all over the world now wrote to him, thanking him for his voice, his courage, and his story. But Ethan never saw himself as a hero. He always said, "I didn't save the world. I just saved my dad." One evening, after dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the sun disappear behind the rooftops. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and for the first time in a long while, the silence between them wasn't filled with worry, it was peaceful. Daniel turned to Ethan. "You ever wondered what life would have been like if you hadn't stopped the wedding?" "All the time," Ethan replied. "It scares me, actually, how close we came to losing everything." Daniel nodded. "I think I would have lost myself completely." "But you didn't," Ethan said, "because you chose to listen. Not just to me but to the truth." They smiled, and that quiet understanding passed between them, again the unspoken bond that had only grown stronger since the day everything fell apart. A week later, Ethan received an invitation to speak at a youth conference about online awareness and emotional scams. He hesitated at first. He didn't think of himself as a speaker, but Daniel encouraged him. "People need to hear your story," he said. "It's not just about what happened, it's about what you did after." Ethan agreed. The conference was held in a large auditorium, filled with students, teachers, and even professionals. When he walked onto the stage, his heart pounded. But as he looked into the crowd, he remembered why he was there: not to impress anyone, but to protect others from making the same mistake his father almost did. He began, "My name is Ethan. A year ago, I stood up at my dad's wedding, and stopped it with just a few words. What I said that day changed our lives forever, but what I learned after, that changed me." He told the story not just of the wedding, but of the lies, the fear, the pain, and most of all, the power of speaking up. After the talk, a girl approached him in tears. "My mom's going through something similar," she said. "I didn't know how to help her, until now." Ethan realized then that his voice, once small and unsure, had become something far greater, not because it was loud, but because it told the truth. When he returned home that night, Daniel was waiting with takeout and 2 glasses of lemonade. How'd it go? Better than I expected, Ethan smiled. I think I helped someone. Daniel raised his glass to the boy who stopped a wedding and started a movement. They clinked their glasses gently and laughed. Later that night, Ethan received an email from a non-profit organization working to support scam victims. They wanted to partner with him to help him turn his platform into something more official, a campaign, a cause, a mission. Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked to his father's room and knocked. Dad, if I do this, it might mean going public. Fully, not just videos, speeches, interviews, events.